and welcome to the PhD Life Coach podcast. And today is the third in my little series of real coaching sessions with real membership students. Very excited to welcome Zareen and Susie. Hi, both of you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Okay, so as usual, I'm going to get you guys to introduce yourselves and then I will coach one of you while the other watches and then we'll swap over. It's going to feel a lot like in our coaching sessions and will hopefully be super useful to all the listeners too. So Zareen, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, sure. So I'm Zareen and I'm a third year PhD student based in the UK. And I'm working on a project looking at health inequalities in the field of stem cell transplantation.
Amazing. Okay, thanks for that, Zareen. And Susie?
Hi, my name's Susie, and I'm in my second year of PhD exploring post-adoption support for single adoptive parents in the UK.
Amazing, good stuff. And we are here today because we are all procrastinators, as many of, I think, listening will also recognize. So we are going to be thinking about a couple of different issues around procrastination and overwhelm and focus and things like that. This is also going to tie in really, really well to the theme of the upcoming quarter of the PhD Life Coach membership. So this will go out on April the 20th if you are listening to it live. And the membership is open for new members next week. We open on April 27th. So if you're listening to this and going, oh man, I do all those things too, you definitely need to make sure that you are on my email list and that you check that out. Come join us in the membership. You can always message me if you want to hear more details. So we are going to go to Zareen first. So Susie, if you can pop off your camera and sound, that would be amazing. Cool. Hi, Zareen. So obviously we had a little chat before you came on and everything, but
Yes.
tell everyone a little bit more about the things you're struggling with at the moment.
Okay, so what I'm struggling with at the moment is just, I think, having these unachievable targets and timelines. And so what I do is instead of sitting and planning and understanding how long everything will take and deciding on whether I can achieve it in the time that I have and removing or reducing some things, I put everything in the calendar, then I get super overwhelmed and stressed when I can't achieve it. And then I start to procrastinate because I know I can't do it. I just don't do it. I just don't get it done. And also because I work from home, I'm a mother, I find all sorts of other excuses. There are all sorts of other bits that come into it. And the end result is that I don't manage to finish things. Or if I do, it's in a very stressed way, to the second, to the minute, I'm kind of completing this presentation before I have to present, and it's not the best. And it's all very stressful. And I feel bad because I just think, oh, I could have done this better if I'd only focused on one thing instead of 5 things. If I'd recognized that 2 weeks ago, I would have done a better job and I wouldn't have been stressed and I would have delivered. So I think that's sort of what I'm facing, and not just now, but I've struggled with this throughout in both my personal and professional life.
Yeah. And I think everybody listening is going to recognize this in their own lives for sure. I want to understand a little bit more about the impact this has on you. So when you've had a week or two where you've sort of said you'd do more than you've ended up doing, and then you've procrastinated and things, what do you end the week saying to yourself?
Um, I just feel lots of negative emotions and thoughts, really. I just think, how am I always ending up in this situation? I clearly don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the skills. Other people can do it. Yeah, and be ready, be prepared. And I always end up in this situation. It must mean that I'm just not good enough. I can't do it. I don't know what I'm doing.
And do those thoughts feel true to you in that moment?
Yes, because I can see the result in front of me and I haven't finished it. I am struggling. So it's almost evidenced by the lack of work.
And you mentioned that, so you obviously gave a whole bunch of different like critical things that you say to yourself, a bunch of statements there about you're not good enough, that other people can
Mm.
do it. Again, things that I know the listeners are going to really resonate with. But there was also a question, and that question right at the beginning was, why do I always do this?
Yes.
Have you ever paused to try and answer that question?
Um, I'm trying to do that more now, but I have to confess that I haven't. Or I sort of think about, no, actually, I just launch myself and don't think too much about it. But since the membership, I've been starting to think about things a bit more.
Yeah. Because often we hear these questions whizzing around, why do I always end up doing this?
Mm,
But it becomes part of a general kind of barrage of criticism rather than a, no, actually, why do I?
yes.
I'm an intelligent person. I've, I got onto my PhD. I clearly have skills. Why do I keep doing this? And taking it actually as a curious question rather than as an additional insult to ourselves can
Mm,
sometimes be really useful.
yes.
Is there anything that comes to mind when we ask that question? Why do I keep doing this?
I think it's because maybe I don't want to do this one task. I find it scary. I find it maybe not enjoyable, or I'm going to find it hard to get into, but once I'm into it, it's okay. But the bottom line is I find it scary and I don't want to do it. And so therefore I put other things or add a lot of things to my day or to my calendar in order not to face it.
Mm.
But it is the most important thing I have to do that day, that week. But I think I just find it too scary, too difficult, too hard. And that's
So
why.
those other things that you're adding in, are you adding them in telling yourself, oh, this will be more fun, I'll do some of this and a little bit the other thing? Or are you also feeling like those have to be done?
Um, I feel that they have to be. In some cases, I feel, yeah, no, I would say that I feel that they have to be done. They absolutely have to be done before I approach this task.
Mm.
If I don't do these things, then I won't be prepared enough to face this task. I think generally that's what it is.
Okay, so it's not just random other tasks, it's tasks that you're telling yourself, I need to do these before I start.
Often it is. Yes, most of the time.
Okay, perfect. Because sometimes when we jam too much in that planning stage. So you'll know in the membership we call it boss mode when we're in boss mode at the beginning of the week or at the beginning of the quarter or whatever, and we're deciding what's in and what's out for the upcoming
Mm.
period. One of the things that I've seen a lot is when people put, and I'm guilty of this myself, I have to say. I shouldn't say guilty, should I? I'm not guilty of it. It's something I do. I don't feel guilty about it because I'm learning, but it's something that I do too. That when there's a lot of things and they all feel important, choosing can feel really uncomfortable because choosing means either accepting that something's not going to happen or accepting that actually, if we're going to pick, I probably have to pick the big thing that's scary and I don't really want to do it. And what I see a lot in people, I'd be interested to see how you resonate with, is we're avoiding the uncomfortableness of that decision. And we're kind of going, oh, actually, sorry, I can't really pick. I need to do all of them. It's fine. Is that something you resonate with?
Yes, I think so. I sort of have this reality that I will somehow manage to do all of it, including the important, difficult one, so as not to face what I do really need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're avoiding making the
Yes.
decision. Actually, I probably do need to
Mm.
just get on with
Yes.
this
Yes.
one big task. And we're avoiding having to make that decision. And instead, we're telling ourselves, I've got to do all these other things as well. And that's really useful to recognize. Those of you listening, there'll be different reasons for all of you. So for me, it's very rarely about there being one big scary thing that I'm avoiding. And it's much more likely to be that there's 100 things I want to do and I don't see why I shouldn't be able to do all of them. And I want to do all of them. I just don't want to have to pick between them. So people listening will have different types of decisions they're avoiding. But it sounds like for you, this avoidance of something that feels big and scary is a big deal.
Yes, I think definitely that's one of the things I'm struggling with, but maybe this is for a second coaching. But in some cases, there is also, I have a lot and I need to get it all done and I'm going to add it all in, even if I can't do it. So there's also that aspect. But yes, one of the main things I struggle with is avoidance of the big task.
Yeah. Well, let's stick with that for today.
Okay.
Obviously, you being a member, you can bring the
Yes.
other element of it to a coaching
Yes.
session, or you can put a question in questions for Vicky and I'll record a voice note as well. So
Perfect.
that is all good. So let's think then about this big task. Why does it feel so scary?
Often it needs a lot of work, a lot of thinking, and I just feel I'm not ready. I don't have enough to write about or to present. So I have one example, and that was one of my abstracts was accepted for a novel presentation. And instead of focusing on, and it was only a 10-minute presentation, instead of focusing on one aspect of my work, I decided I was going to include all of it, even though the other bit of the data was not ready. So I spent a couple of weeks trying to get the data ready to then realize a week before the conference that I couldn't. But then by then, time had passed and I didn't really have much time to prepare on what was ready and what I should have presented.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was it you were avoiding there?
I think I was telling myself I didn't have enough to present because I felt what I have done so far was not important enough. I needed to already have the big final result ready.
Yeah.
And often I have been feeling like this, that what I've done so far is not good enough and I need to have more. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Yeah. And that sort of story really then compounds when we've got into this cycle of putting in too much to do, getting overwhelmed by it, procrastinating, not getting it done, doing it all over again. Because it kind of reinforces this story we've got that we're not doing enough and that we're not good enough and that we're not moving fast enough and all of those things. I'm interested in what emotions you experience when you think I don't have enough, there's not enough here to make it good. What emotions do you experience?
I just think, how can I have reached this stage? I'm starting year 3 and I still don't have enough data. I'm still not in a good position when others have nearly written up their thesis. How can I be in this situation? What am I doing wrong? This is a disaster. I will never finish it.
I'm going to pause you because these are a whole lot more thoughts.
Yes. Okay.
I want you to think about emotions.
Emotions. Right.
So, how does it feel in your body? What emotions do you experience when
Okay.
you're telling yourself?
Stressed.
Yeah.
Agitated, disappointed in myself. Yeah, just really disappointed in myself and really stressed.
Yeah. Okay. So we pause there. And the reason I ask about emotions rather than just thoughts is partly because one of the things I've noticed working with PhD students and academics is that we're incredibly good at being cognitive. We can think all these thoughts. And then we ask people about their emotions and they usually respond with more thoughts. Okay. And just taking a second to go, hang on, how am I actually feeling right now? Is a really useful practice in and of itself, even aside from where we're going to go with this in this coaching session. When you hear your brain spinning with all these thoughts, being able to pause and say, what emotions am I actually feeling right now? Let's just start from there. Rather than telling myself more and more stories about why this is so terrible and why I'm so awful, let's just pause. What am I experiencing? Okay. And then the other reason that's so useful in this context is that procrastination is emotion avoidance.
Mm.
We procrastinate when we're experiencing an emotion that we don't like and we're trying to make it go away. And so, in order to understand why we're procrastinating, we have to understand a little bit about what emotions we're avoiding. So, it sounds as though you're trying to avoid feeling stressed, avoid feeling agitated, avoid feeling disappointed by telling yourself, yeah, but if I do all of this, then I'll have enough and it will all be okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that suddenly, I don't know how you receive that, but for me, that suddenly feels really logical. Right? At the moment, I feel stressed and disappointed, but I have a plan. And if I follow the plan and I do all these things, then I won't feel stressed and disappointed anymore because I will have everything I need to make this good.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's how it sort of plays out as well in reality.
The trouble is, if we then can't do all the things, we never actually get to that moment of relief, or not without a huge, like, stressful burnout to the last second experience,
Yes.
right? So it's this, in that moment, the procrastination is the absolutely logical thing. If I'm freaking out because I haven't done enough and I'm disappointed and it's not going to be good enough, the solution to that is I need to do more and I'm going to do it this week. And so by the end of this week, I'll be fine. Perfectly logical in the moment. It just doesn't work out that way because we all know that when we try and do too much, then it becomes overwhelming. Then we procrastinate some more, then we don't do it.
Yeah.
Okay? How could you start doing a big scary task? So, say preparing this presentation or similar that you've got coming up without having to hide from those feelings of disappointment.
I think I just need to be honest with myself and also just sort of prepare a bit more and just not launch myself straight away and just face it. I think I just need to sit down and make a start instead of saying, oh, I can't make a start. I'm going to do these other things, and sort of you almost lie to myself saying, well, I need that to do this. I just need to make a start and just have more realistic timings.
Okay. Have you told yourself, I just need to prepare more, I just need to sit down, I just need to be more realistic, and I just need to get on with it before?
Yes.
Yeah. This isn't a solution. Okay. And for anybody listening, if you hear yourself saying just a lot, the word just implies it's easy. This is not easy. We're going to avoid the word just because otherwise it makes it feel as though this should be straightforward. And if it's not straightforward, there's something wrong with you. This isn't straightforward. But equally, we're not going to address this by telling ourselves this would be okay if I was just better. If I was just more realistic, if I was just more on it, if I planned further ahead, this would all be fine. Because if we did those things, we wouldn't be sitting here, right?
True.
What I want us to go back to is the idea, what would I need to say to myself in order to start this task when I'm feeling a bit disappointed and a bit agitated? So not how could I be so prepared that I don't feel disappointed and agitated anymore, because then it's easy to start. You are feeling agitated and disappointed about this thing, but you also want to get it done. If you had a child who was feeling a bit disappointed, who was feeling a bit sad with how much they'd done, but they do need to do this thing and they're a bit agitated, what things might you say to them to help them to get started?
Just a lot of encouragement to say, look, your abstract was accepted. You can do this. It's clearly interesting work that you're doing and you have enough, otherwise it wouldn't have been accepted. So you can do this, you're ready, and you can absolutely do this. Yeah, encouragement.
And how would that feel to say to yourself?
Yeah, it will feel great, but I don't do that very often. I'm just very negative about myself.
Why do you think, is it that you just don't think to do that or do you avoid it?
I think I just don't think to do it. I don't, yeah, no, I don't think to say those things to myself. I'll say it to another person,
Mm.
but I wouldn't say it about myself. I don't know. I think I just feel maybe it's, I guess, why wouldn't I say it to myself? I mean, obviously, in this scenario now, it makes sense that I should be saying it to myself, but I think I've just never thought of myself as being important or valued or yeah, I think I've just not put myself on the list and that I'm important enough to say those things to myself.
Do you think you are when you stop and think about it?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, but I tend to be a bit more negative about myself than really encouraging and saying, yes, you've done really well and you're doing great work. I never say that. So it's hard to actually say that to myself.
Mm. One of the things I notice, partly about how you described it, but I've seen this before as well, is people who criticize themselves go from one extreme to the other. So the examples of encouragement you gave there was telling yourself you did great work. And if you're somebody who's used to criticizing yourself, telling yourself the work's great when you're not sure whether it is or not
Mm,
is a really big jump.
yes.
Okay. And I think sometimes it's useful to find something that's encouraging but feels true. Because I'm going to guess in those moments, you've done great work isn't going to feel true to you. I
No.
suspect it is true. I suspect if I came and objectively looked at what you were doing, I mean, health inequalities is such an important topic, and I suspect you're doing some really interesting stuff. But if it doesn't feel true to
Oh,
you,
that's true. Yeah, I'll
then
just be lying.
let's not aim for that.
Yeah.
One of the things I find helpful is saying things like, this might not be the best presentation ever, but I'm going to pull it together with what I've got. I can make it as interesting as I can with the data I have. Is it going to be perfect? Who knows? Might be great, might not be. I don't know. But I need to make it, and this is the data I have. And sometimes, rather than wasting time trying to tell ourselves it'll be okay when we don't know, it's kind of going, I don't know if it'll be okay, but I still need to make it. So let's have a go. How good can we make it?
I think it's because I also want it to be perfect.
Mm.
I want it to be perfect. Why can't it be perfect? It has to be perfect. Everybody else manages to do it.
Everybody else manages to do perfect presentations.
Yes.
Have you been to a conference? I feel like you've seen non-perfect presentations. But seriously, you've heard boring presentations.
I
You've
have,
heard
yeah.
presentations with weak data. You've heard presentations where they jammed far too much in and it made no sense
Yes.
at all. You've heard
Yes.
presentations where you couldn't hear what they were saying.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. We've got to spot some of these stories as they go through our heads. Everybody else does perfect presentations. It's like anyone who's ever been taught at a university knows that's definitely not true.
Mm. Yeah, that's true.
In fact, if people are resonating with this part, and for you specifically, if you haven't heard it already, there's a podcast episode that's called something like The Paradox of Imposter Syndrome.
Yes.
It's a really fun one around this kind of tendency that we have to tell, I'm useless, I'm terrible, I'm really bad, I'm behind everybody, I'm definitely not good enough to get a PhD.
Yep.
But I should also be able to do a perfect PhD that gets no changes and changes the world.
I think that's exactly what I say to myself. That represents it, Vicky, I think, what you just said there.
And when you see it, it's suddenly this, how can I simultaneously tell myself that I have to create something groundbreaking and perfect because otherwise I'm not living up to my potential, but that also I'm a useless pile of rubbish that doesn't deserve to be here? Like,
Yeah.
when you see those things, then suddenly you can't take your thoughts quite so seriously anymore because it's like, well, they can't both be true. How about I'm a reasonably competent PhD student who's doing a presentation that will be
Yeah.
all right. I think a lot of people would do really well to be aiming for, I'm going to do an all right thesis and an all right presentation.
Yeah,
And you
I
know
think
what?
so.
It'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I think in that moment, I think you've gone a really long way in noticing why you're putting up too much. Okay. So when you're in boss mode, when you're planning your weeks, and you're kind of going, oh, I think there's too many things. This looks like a bit of a squish. I want you to ask yourself, what am I avoiding? Which is the task that I'm telling myself I'm not ready to do yet?
Mhm.
And what do I need to say to myself to have a go at it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Because even if it's true that there are additional things that you could do, they're almost always better off being done afterwards. They're almost always better off being done afterwards. So when you've had a go at pulling the presentation together, when you've got your broad narrative, when you can see how much there is that fills what time you have already, do you then need more data? In which case, great, let's go back, get more data, but we've got the first part of it. And the same
Yes.
for reading as well, for those of you who are having to write at the moment, that if you're writing, you'll go, I just need to read more, I just need to read more. If you write some first, you'll have a much better idea as to what you need to read. Whereas when it's this need to just read more, whatever that means, that's when we end up going down rabbit holes, which is a perfect switch because that's what we're going to be talking with Susie about in a second. So, how was that, Serene?
That was really good because I started off a little bit confused, but I don't know. I think I just, yeah, I feel I can really try and experiment with this and try and sort of approach it this way, a different way next time.
And the gorgeous thing, obviously, because you remember, this isn't the sort of thing where you have one-off coaching and then you go
Mm.
away and go, oh, fixed, Vic, thanks.
Yeah.
Amazing. I no longer plan too much and procrastinate. But you get to experiment with this, experiment with asking, what am I avoiding here? How could I do a bit of that? See how it goes. And then, like I say, you can put a question into questions for Vicky and I'll record you an answer or come back to another live session and we can kind of delve into what comes up when you've tried these things.
Yes, absolutely. I think I will need to do that because it can't just be fixed in one go. Yeah.
100%. This is an ongoing thing. That is the sort of benefit of having access
Yes.
to it in that sort of ongoing way. Okay,
Perfect. Thank you.
amazing. So, Susie, do you want to come back on? There we go.
Yeah.
Amazing. How did you find that?
Wow, that was so interesting. Oh my gosh, I did make a lot of notes because the same time as recognizing so many traits that Zareen referred to, it really stood out how high her expectations are of herself. And so that completely resonates with me. And targets. Oh my gosh. When she was talking about unachievable targets and timelines, I did recognize that because I feel that the only thing, it sounds so stereotyped, but I feel like the only thing that forces me to focus is a deadline. And then it's last minute. So when she was talking about presentations, yeah, that's it's so interesting that when we have some kind of deadline or we're going to suddenly be visible, we can't hide, behind our screens at home. And I'm not saying she does this, but get away with, being distracted by other tasks or by being a mother or trying to fit in, like she said, a million things. And for me, that brought up the word scattered
Hmm.
because that's how I feel. So things she was saying, I was able to listen to Zareen and take on board. I was also able to observe aspects of myself, but see like mini solutions through what you were saying and through what she was saying. But again, like she said, unable to actually apply that when it's just yourself in your space.
Definitely. And this is what I mean, you have just encapsulated everything I love about group coaching because I think coaching is brilliant. Getting one-to-one coaching, love it. It's one of my favorite things
Yeah.
to do. But seeing somebody else say it just gives you that tiny bit of distance that mean you, I think you said the word observe it. You get to observe it in a way that's really hard to do on yourself. You
Yeah.
get to see it, not, oh, I say that, I do that. Oh, but that tiny bit of distance enables you to sort of come up with solutions that are much harder to see when you're thinking about your own life, as much as,
Totally.
oh, I could do this, it suddenly becomes easier somehow in that
Yeah,
space.
absolutely. And I was thinking, as I was listening constantly, I was just thinking, oh my gosh, but what you're doing is so kind of highbrow and how amazing, what an extraordinary contribution. And look at what you're achieving, even if you don't think it's very much. So I wanted to kind of celebrate her achievements and get her to as well.
Yes.
And yet, when it comes to me, and people might say that, I don't believe it
Mm. But you believe
because,
it about Zareen.
oh, I do.
Yeah, and you've only, I mean, you guys don't know each other particularly, I don't
No,
think, from the membership, do you?
no,
So that's what the other thing that's fascinating when, Zareen was saying that she could encourage other people but struggle to do it for herself.
yeah,
It's then also remembering that you would find it easy to encourage Zareen and to talk about all the
exactly.
things that she's doing brilliantly. And I'm sure she's watching now. I'm sure that she will feel the same way as we coach you. And that's the other thing I think is that sometimes you see other people that are doing the exact things that you're doing, but that when you do them, you're telling yourself that you don't deserve to be here and you should probably give up. But you would never in a million years, I assume, say to Zareen, oh, yeah, I think you should, if you're not finishing your task lists every Friday, you should probably quit.
Way. No, not in a million years. I'd do the absolute opposite.
I love that. I'm just going to add in one further tip because I don't think it's connected with what you're talking about. And I think it is to what we were talking about with Zareen, which is if you find it really, really hard to plan realistically and you still have too much on your plate at the beginning of the week, the other alternative is not beating yourself up for not finishing everything on your list. I can't remember the last time I finished everything on my list. I am still working very much on facing the things that make me feel uncomfortable, making the decisions at the beginning of the week so that I'm not making them later. All of the things that I talk with you guys about is very much a work in progress in my life. But the bit that I am now, I'm going to say brilliant at, is on a Friday if I haven't finished them. Okay, I haven't finished them. The things that were urgent got done, and the rest of it didn't, and that's okay. And that is always there. Is the problem is when we've got both, that we're refusing to give realistic plans and we're refusing to give ourselves slack if we don't meet our unrealistic plans. We can't have both. We can either make realistic plans or we can give ourselves a bit more like, okay, well, it was an unrealistic plan. I got quite a lot that done though, didn't I? kind of vibes at the end of the week. And that can sometimes be a starting point to then going back and being more realistic in your planning.
And that's interesting because the word that came to me as you were saying all that, I know that was for Zareen and what she was talking about as well, was prioritizing. And sometimes I don't actually know how to prioritize.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a whole thing. And we are going to be doing some stuff about prioritizing. We did some in the membership this quarter, as you might remember. We are going to be doing some more in next quarter as well. Because, yes, absolutely. And that is, I think, the thing that has made it easier for me to accept I don't get everything done is I do now know what my priorities are. And I do get those done. And if everything else was somewhat unrealistic, then so be it. That's life.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, let's switch on to your situation because I know you empathize a lot with what Zareen was saying, but there was also some other things that you were specifically experiencing at the moment.
Yeah. I get very drawn in and distracted by shiny things. And I use that term because whatever that shiny thing is that relates to maybe something else within my research, it's going to be far more interesting than the survey I'm constructing or the forms that I have to build for my interviews or, consent, all that kind of thing. And it might be that something comes into my head. And so I think, oh my God, I have to look that up.
Mm.
Or it might be, honestly, it might be triggered by a word on a page. And I will, it's like a compulsion to look that up.
Yeah.
And so I will get drawn in and I will enter a whole other world
Mm.
of very fascinating things.
And when do you? So one of the things, I don't know whether you were at the session where we talked about this, but I'm really interested in the timeline of losing focus. In fact, I think it's next quarter we talk about it, so I don't think you will have been at the workshop. It's coming up. I'm really fascinated by the timeline of getting distracted. So if we think about this as like a timeline, and at the beginning, you're doing the task that you intended to do, okay? And you see your word, whatever it is, your shiny thing, and your incredible creative brain has a ping about it. Because that's the problem here, right? This is the problem, is that you've got a creative brain that thinks of things when it sees something, okay? So you notice something, you immediately go and look it up. Is that, if it goes ping, that's exciting?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got a very short, those of you watching on YouTube will see me doing like a timeline across the screen. If you haven't watched on YouTube yet, go find it. So we've got a very short amount of time between having the distracting, inciting incident, as it were, and you reacting to it. So you then go off. Okay. How quickly are you aware that you're doing something that's not what you originally intended?
Um, Not sure how quickly. To say I'm not aware would be a lie because I am aware.
Okay.
I'm drawing myself away from, like you said about procrastination being emotion avoidance. I'm avoiding something that's boring. I don't want to feel boring
Yes.
or do something that's boring. I find that tedious and difficult.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to what you said about discomfort. It makes me feel because I want to escape. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
I don't like it's very, I can't believe I've chosen to do a PhD because I feel slightly imprisoned and
Mm,
I'm not good at that feeling. And so it makes me feel frustrated, fidgety, and again, I use that word scattered.
yeah.
So this shiny thing, I am aware I'm doing it,
Mm,
but it's more interesting. And I don't really think all this through, but it may what do you call it, just take away, it may be rebalance me, I don't know, it may take me to a different emotion which is more positive than where I'm at, or maybe I'm at a standpoint with whatever I'm doing and I just need to get out of it into something else.
okay.
So I kind of create this escape route.
Okay, perfect. So again, I think that shows real insight into what you're doing here. We sometimes talk about the push and pull of procrastination, that there's usually something pushing you away from the task that you're intending to do. And then there's usually something that pulls you towards the task that you're doing when you're procrastinating. So when Zareen was talking, it sounded like there was a lot of push away, that there were tasks that she just didn't want to do. And so she was doing other things to avoid those. With you, it sounds a little bit of both, that you want to avoid the boring tasks, but there's also these shiny creative ideas that feel way more fun over here. So we jump almost immediately. We're almost immediately aware that we are procrastinating. We are doing something other than we intended. How long then before you decide, no, I've got to go back to what I said I was doing?
I will probably get up and go and make a cup of tea or something.
Okay, so
So I
that's how
will not,
you like break it
yes,
almost.
it is.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
how long is that you typically?
Mm, gosh. Oh, it could be half an hour,
Okay,
because
cool.
I might even go out for a walk because that restores me as well.
But in terms of what I'm interested in is the time between you starting to engage with the shiny thing and you going, no, I need to break this. So whatever you
Yeah.
then go and do.
Could be
Uh,
an hour.
okay, so you could be in your shiny thing for about an hour, and then you go, no, this is not what I'm meant to be doing. And you've got, it sounds like you've got a couple of tactics that help you. going for a coffee, going for a walk, and then you have that. That's then however long a coffee or a walk takes.
Yeah.
How do you then find getting back to the original task?
I kind of talk to myself and say, right, you've got to do this because you said you were going to send it to your supervisor. So you need to fulfill that. So you've got to get on with it.
Okay. So we'll have a think about what tone you're using when you talk to yourself and things, whether that's an encouraging, yes, we could get this done, let's go kind of vibe, or you've got to. But you've got some self-talk that enables you to then get back on it again. And then
Yes.
how long would you typically be able to stay back in the boring inverted commas task before a different shiny distracts you?
Well, interestingly, that can vary because I can go back to a really tedious, a repetitive task, like a survey or like a Excel spreadsheet, putting loads of authors and things like that.
Mm.
If I get really into it, I suddenly have some kind of mini breakthrough. I will stick at it.
Yeah.
And I will think, right, okay, I've just got 10 more lines to get in there. I'm going to do it. If I reach some point where I have to go and look something up around that and it's more complicated and I can't find it, depending how I feel, I might give up and I think, oh my God, I might give up. Or I might keep going.
Okay.
It
Perfect.
does vary.
Yeah, and that's completely normal, right? The reason I'm asking you about this timeline is because most people think that I need to stay focused is kind of a single task. Stay focused. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Yes.
And in reality, it's not. Have you ever heard me talk about the tightrope analogy
Mm,
in any of the sessions? I'm going to
no.
explain it anyway, so don't
Yeah.
worry. If I'm repeating myself, then it's for the benefit of the listeners.
Yeah.
So I use tightrope walking as an analogy quite a lot because people think that good tightrope walkers don't wobble. But good tightrope walkers do wobble. They just wobble a little bit less. They recognize they're wobbling more quickly. They correct more accurately, and then they keep going for longer. Whereas beginner tightrope walkers do big wobbles, don't notice they're wobbling until they're really wobbled, panic and either don't correct or overcorrect, and then do the same again. Okay. And they think they need to learn not to wobble. And it's not true. They need to learn to notice what makes them wobble, do that less, notice that they're wobbling, correct more calmly without judgment. And it's that sort of notice and correct that enables tightrope walkers or any of these like balance performers to do what they do. And the same is true with focus. So that timeline that we went through are all points of intervention. We've got the point of intervention of how can I make this boring task feel a bit less boring or make myself more willing to do something that's boring. So we kind of got that bit. How can I notice more readily that the task I'm now doing is not what I intended? Because sometimes people are like, oh, no, this counts. I'm looking something up. It's definitely writing.
Yeah.
How can I notice this is procrastination? How can I stop doing that task more quickly? How can I return to the other task more quickly? And doing all of it with less judgment. Because when we then make a massive drama about it, that's like when you fall off the tightrope. Oh, I'm such a rubbish tightrope walker. I can never get back up there again. Don't make you better at tightrope walking. Yeah. Whereas if it's, oh, okay, I wobbled, but I can jump back. No worries. Happy days. Off we go again. That's different.
Mm-hmm.
How does that sort of analogy sit with you? Does that sort of enlighten anything?
It does. It does. I wrote a few notes about what you were saying earlier and about the self-talk and taking smaller steps as well, actually, and breaking things down into, going from one massive chunk into little bits, almost staying in the present a little bit more and just feeling, okay, I'm just going to do this. I have to think about the entire PhD. I have to think about, oh my God, all those years ahead. And, I've gone part-time and no, that is absolutely disastrous.
Yeah.
I mean, that is almost food. It's a feast for procrastination.
100%, because you can't do all that when you look at it all at once. It's like I've never met anybody who's walked into a supermarket and said, oh no, I'm going to have to eat all this food. No, you're not. You're going to get the bits you need now. You're going to eat those and it's going to be great. It'll be fine. We'll come back and get some more later. And the same is true if you look at the entirety of what you need to do over the next 3 years, then it's a huge amount of work. But we've got 3 years. And I think that comes into the helping with when we're planning the tasks. Like, okay, I know me. I know I don't like boring tasks. So I'm going to be doing a boring thing. How can I make it feel a little bit more interesting? Give myself little goals to get to and whatever. But then there's also, and I don't know whether you picked it up when I first said it, the notion of being willing to do something bored.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you?
Well, actually, being willing to aligns with the entire purpose of the PhD. So I can easily become more willing and less procrastination when I just remember, well, why am I doing this? Oh, yeah, I know. And that commitment, it helps me recommit and remember my original intention, actually. And yes, that really does kind of realign me in a way, and it makes me focus. The other thing I have a difficulty with related to the procrastination and writing is that when I'm writing, like Zareen said, I don't think it's good enough, but also because I'm in social sciences, I don't feel like a natural social scientist. I feel sometimes, oh my gosh, I should be in humanities. I'm writing and they say, oh, can you simplify this? It's not clear enough or simple enough. It needs to be less of like a lived experience essay. I sometimes think this is almost an excuse to stop. I have those arguments with myself, which is a procrastination thing, really. I think I'm in the wrong faculty. Oh, shouldn't be doing it. I'll never be able to write properly. And then that is like, well, the day's over, really.
Why is the day over? What do you say to yourself when those thoughts come up? Because that's totally understandable, right? Especially if you're in a discipline that's different to what you're used to. What do you then say to yourself?
I say, well, they've now said, even though my research is qualitative, but there's aspects of it where I will have to do some stats. Well, do they know that I can't do that? Do they actually know? Which part of my supervisors believe that I will actually be able to do that? Or I arrive at supervision as if I'm at a job interview and they are going to say, well, Susie, it's been great. You've done some good work here, but yeah, not really, not worth continuing.
So when those thoughts come up, we very much accept them, feed them, sort of extrapolate from them, and then that makes it hard for you to carry on working.
Yeah, that's terrible, because then I say to myself, oh, why are you being so negative? Because I strongly believe in visualization. I think, well done. You've just projected an entire visual of you failing this whole thing. So that's ridiculous. So then I have to get my invisible like broom which I literally do, to sweep away that thought and create. And I do tackle myself to say, right, just sit a moment, see yourself. And I've looked up my particular university's graduation gown and cap, put a picture on the wall so that I can go, no, no, that's what you're going to be wearing. Don't know when, but that's what you're going to be wearing.
So
So I
you
have to
have
do that.
techniques that you use.
I do, but it seems a mountain that I have to climb every day. And it's quite, I mean, it's when one of my supervisors said at the beginning, this is a journey of endurance, nothing else. And the endurance bit is getting yourself back on your feet, out of your tent and climbing the thing.
I think it's so interesting that you've got this invisible broom that you talk about, which I love as a technique. I think that's fabulous. But the amount of time and the amount of kind of self-judgment that happens before you start using it sounds like quite a lot that you go through the self-criticism about your actual writing, let's say. Then you criticize yourself about having generated something negative, and then the invisible broom comes out. I'm just wondering, are there ways that we could shorten that time lag so
Would
that
like
when
that.
your brain goes, oh, you'll never be able to write like a social scientist, we go, oh no, with the invisible broom. That's not helpful. And we replace it with not, I can definitely do this, but with, okay, what do I need to learn then? What bit do I need to do? Because I'll do it. Let's figure it out. I'm just wondering how you could get that broom there more quickly.
Yeah, I think, as you said, part of it is awareness and action. You know, there seems to be a delay, as you say, with my awareness of it since the time I was judging it, and to close that gap. So maybe now you've highlighted that there seems to be an unnecessarily long gap. Perhaps I could write that down. I can put that on the wall because I am so visual, and I can put that on the
Picture
wall.
of your, I was about to say a
Yeah,
picture of your invisible broom. I'm not sure how you show an invisible broom, but we may have to have a picture of a visible broom so that you're kind of
yeah.
reminding yourself, no, no, I can swish these thoughts away. And we're not, people who don't know much about sort of coaching and the things that we do here, they often think, oh, is it just toxic positivity? Just telling yourself that everything's fine and I can do anything and da, da, da. And it's like, it's not. I don't want you to replace the thought of I can never be a social scientist with I'm already a brilliant social scientist. You're probably not. You're probably still writing like a humanities person. That's okay though, because these are things we can learn. And so what
Yeah.
we're looking for is not, oh, I'm really good at this. We're looking for, okay, well, let's get specific. What's so different about how a social scientist writes than a humanity? How can I understand the difference more clearly? How can I adapt what I'm doing to be a bit more like this, a bit more of the time, and see it as a kind of a training need, essentially, rather than a sort of inherent trait that you can't change?
Totally, totally. And whilst you're talking, it's made me realize how uplifting I find this whole process. And actually, by joining a little group, it really does dissolve some of those intense challenges that we endlessly analyze on our own, or on my own, and Zareen seems to do the same, in these spaces where, you haven't got another buddy to resolve it. And it is like getting in my invisible broom out here. It's very uplifting. And when you find that right energy in the group, I think it's just so positive.
Definitely. Definitely. Well, again,
Yeah.
I think that's the perfect moment to bring Zareen back on then. We'll bring the group back together. Here she comes. How
Hi.
was that, Zareen?
Hi.
That was great. That was so interesting seeing someone else being coached, and also I found so many similarities to what we were just talking about in my session. And I think what struck me about the whole session is the importance of emotion and awareness.
Mm,
And being okay with doing these boring tasks and being aware of how we feel and how to fix it, because I think that's what I've been avoiding, thinking about it, how I feel, what I need to say to myself. I've just been ignoring all of that because I want to continue. But I found so much similarities from what Susie was saying about losing focus to try the big shiny things so as to avoid the thing that is boring, is going to make you feel uncomfortable. So yeah, I definitely related to it. And also when she said endurance, I had started thinking that the PhD is a marathon and that you have to take it bit by bit, and you can't just do it all in one go.
Talking of endurance, do either of you do endurance races or anything? Susie does. Okay. So Susie, what's the longest race you do? The longest distance?
Marathon.
You do marathons.
Marathon.
Okay, perfect. Now, this is relying on whether you're a healthy marathon runner or not. We shall see in a second. But what sorts of things do you think psychologically healthy marathon runners say to themselves during the race?
They break it down. So 42.2 kilometers, 26.2 miles, they break it down, and that's what they tell you to do. They break it down into, little 5Ks. So I'll just do this next 5K. And someone told me to wear your number on the front with your name in really big letters. And like this little group, but on a larger scale, being part of something bigger is absolutely, it's beyond encouraging. So when people shout out your name, it keeps you going.
Yeah.
And breaking it down and not looking at the entire block of miles that you've got to complete and not worrying about the time. Certainly not for me.
And for some people they are, but it's the difference between going, right, I think I'm on pace at the moment. I'm going to do X,
Yeah.
Y. I'm going to focus on lifting my knees up or whatever is the technique that you're kind of focusing on, reminding this is what I trained for. I'm doing it the way we always do. The ones that are doing well physically and psychologically are not going to be going, who are you to think you can do a marathon? What on earth did you sign up for this? Now, some people are. I've done half marathons and I've definitely thought that some of the time, but I wouldn't recommend it. But the ones who are thinking in ways that are helping them are reminding themselves that they can tolerate feeling uncomfortable. That's one of the biggest things with learning to run, is being able to realize that you can be out of breath and still run. It doesn't mean you have to stop and relieve that heavy breathing. The people that have not exercised at all, if you get out of breath, you have to stop. No, you get out of breath, but you reach a baseline. It's the same with PhD work, right? And this is not about just pushing through and destroying yourself, but it's saying, you know what, I am kind of bored, but I can do it for another half an hour. I can tolerate this level of boredom for another half an hour, and then maybe we'll take it a little bit easier or whatever. So I think when we're telling ourselves that something's an endurance, it sort of reinforces this sense that it's a slog. But Susie, if you do marathons, you must love some elements of it to some extent, and finding joy in doing, seeing the views, seeing the people, being part of all of these sorts of things, recognizing the bits you love about it as well. Endurance sports shouldn't just be a painful slog, and PhDs shouldn't just be a painful slog. We can look for the glimmers of the fun bits, the reasons why we chose it, Susie, the reasons why it's important, Zoe, and just the bits that are fun, the bits we get to do. We get to recognize all those bits and remind ourselves of all those bits. And I think the more we do that, the less there's this kind of, I'm going to slog through this massive thing sensation.
Yeah.
I've got two final tips before we finish up. The first is, I think having that long-term big picture thing to focus on, brilliant. But I want you to also have in mind what you're going to feel like at the end of this session or the end of this day when you've got done the things you said you'd get done. Because it's a little bit like, I'm at that age where I'm starting to think about healthy aging and all that fun stuff. And I'm doing this so that when I'm 80, I can still do fun things. It's kind of motivating. If we can bring it, there's a lot of evidence in the sports science literature that if you bring in that kind of the distance you're looking at, and you say, if I do this one exercise session, I'm going to feel satisfied. I'm going to feel more energized. I'm going to get immediate benefits. And I think remembering that, so having your graduation pictures definitely, but also being able to visualize yourself at the end of today, having done the things you said you'd do,
Yeah.
having that can really, really help. So that's tip one.
Yeah.
Tip two, just for the shiny object syndrome, I'm going to give you a completely unrelated analogy here, but I think it works. So I had a bit of a problem with buying things on Amazon. Not really expensive things, but like usually craft tools of some description, or books, or various hobbies that I decided I definitely have time for alongside my 400 other hobbies. And they'd be like £20 here, £20 there, but it adds up, right? Anyway, January, I started, and this is 100% true, I promise. I started a note on my phone that's called Wishlist Christmas 2026. And when I think, ooh, I should get that, I dump it on my Christmas list for next year. Now, I will edit that by the time I get there and I won't ask for all of it, but it is working so well. And one of the things that I talk about, there's a workshop that you guys have access to called How to Write When You're Struggling to Write. And it goes through 7 different roles of writing. We haven't got time to go into them here, but you guys will be able to look it up. But one of them is personal assistant. And what I would highly recommend you do is that so Zareen, for example, if you're telling yourself, oh, I really need to check so and so because I can't do this until I know that, write it in your personal assistant's notebook. And Susie, if you're finding super shiny, interesting things, you write it in your personal assistant's notebook as something they can read for you later. Okay. So we're going, oh, yeah, we're not going, no, stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it. We're going, oh, yes, that does sound useful, or that does sound interesting. I'm just going to pop it over here. And then we can actually schedule time for you to be in personal assistant mode, or rabbit hole mode, if you want to call it. Where it's like, you know what? I'm allowed to go down rabbit holes. It's a Tuesday night. I'm going down a rabbit hole. Happy days. It's in the diary. Look, it says rabbit hole. And then you go and look at, okay, well, what of the things that I've jotted down that might be interesting rabbit holes do I want to go down? I want to do that one. Happy days. Let's go. So rather than fighting your brain and telling you to forget it, saying, I'm putting it over here. And we're going to look at it when the time is right. But the time right now is for making my presentation or sorting out my survey or whatever it is. Okay, we will do it. It's over there. It's on the list. Come back to it another time. But right now I'm doing the important task. That can be a really useful sort of tool to manage those thoughts.
Yeah. Really good idea. Yeah, I love your wish list, Xmas 26.
It's got so much on it. I seriously saved myself so much money already. There's probably 40
So
books on
good.
there at the moment,
Oh
plus
my
all sorts of
gosh.
random other things.
So good.
And I've already deleted some things off it. That's the other thing that's interesting, right? Is this isn't then a completely, in fact, we're going to talk about this. The workshop we've got on Wednesday, so by the time this goes out, we'll have done it, is about capturing and organizing tasks. And we also have to remember that everything we put on a list, we don't have to do. Because the other thing I've realized with my Christmas list is, having looked at it already, there's some things that I've deleted off going, yeah, I'm actually never going to do that, am I? And, that moment has gone and I've deleted it. And if we don't have a system for that, then we end up with these huge lists that we're never ever going to get through. So it's this sort of developing both the mindset and the systems at the same time so that we can learn to manage ourselves and do the things that we actually want to do.
Yeah, so good.
Sounds great.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I'm sure you have resonated with lots of what has been said today. If you did, do make sure that you check out the membership we open next week. You could come and check out the Capturing and Organising Your Tasks webinar, the How to Write When You're Struggling to Write webinar, or any of the rest of the stuff. Come to a coaching session with these guys, with me, and join our amazing community. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next week.